Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome United States Representative Nick Rahall. United States Representative Richard Burr. White House Chief of Staff Erskine Bowles. And Todd General Store Owner Sheila Morgan. Ladies and gentlemen, the President and Vice President of the United States, accompanied by Governor of North Carolina, James Hunt.
You can close that up if you want. There you go. That's okay.
Are you ready? Yeah. Thank you very much. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, my colleague from West Virginia, Congressman Rahall, Governor Hunt, members of the New River Heritage Task Force, and my fellow North Carolinians. This is a great day, and this is a historic event. We're here today to honor this unique river community with a unique status. The New River has provided life to this valley for over 300 million years. It watched as these beautiful mountains around us grew up from the ground. It was hunted and fished by Cherokee and Creek and Shawnee Indians and surveyed by the fathers of our founding fathers. It is, as former Governor James Holshouser stated, one of the few remaining areas where the total record of man on this continent can be examined and understood. In the 1970s, the talk of a dam in this area threatened the future of this river. Senator James Broyhill, who's with us today, former Congressman Steve Neal, who is also with us, Senator Jesse Helms, and the entire North Carolina delegation worked with local officials, Governor Holshouser, Attorney General Rufus Edmondson, to see that a 26-mile portion of the river be designated as a scenic river area. President Ford signed this designation into law in November of 1976, effectively killing the dam project. Over a decade of hard work and perseverance by residents, businesses, environmental groups, and elected officials culminated into what Governor Holshouser said at the time was one of the most satisfying and memorable days in terms of a contribution to the public good and personal accomplishment in his 14 years in politics. Now, over 20 years later, these same diverse groups have come together once again for the common cause that has bound this area together for centuries, the New River. I am confident that the efforts and the enthusiasm that these groups have put into securing the nomination of American Heritage Designation will not only assure the future of the New River, but the beauty of its surroundings. Mr. President, we're honored to have you with us today, and we're privileged to secure the river's new designation. Mr. President, in North Carolina, we realize the responsibility that comes with this designation and pledge our vigilance, both now and in the years to come. And to this community, I personally pledge my commitment of assistance wherever needed to uphold this pledge. This is indeed a great day, and this is a historic event. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce a gentleman whose family's ties to this great state are as historic and laudable as is this river. Please join me in welcoming the Chief of Staff to the President of the United States, Erskine Bowles.
Thank you very much, Congressman. These people are lucky to have you representing them. It is a great thrill, let me tell you, for me to get a chance to come home today. I want you to know that the memories that I have of camping and hiking and hunting and fishing with my dad in these mountains of North Carolina truly fill up my heart with joy today. I remember the first time I had a chance to get out on the New River. It was back when I was pretty new myself. I was about 10 years old, and my dad and I canoed downriver, or I guess in the case of a canoe, it's upriver, starting here in Todd and fly fishing by day and sleeping under the stars at night. And thanks to the commitment that all of you have made to keeping this river healthy and clean, moms and dads just like me are still taking their kids here for unforgettable canoe trips. I think I still have my t-shirt that says Canoe the New. And there's still a bunch of wide-eyed 10-year-old kids out there catching beautiful rainbow trout. No community in the country has treated its river with greater respect and love than you all have here in West Jefferson, and you should be awfully, awfully proud. I was talking with former Attorney General Rufus Edmondson the other day, and he reminded me of the words that Elizabeth McCummon sang about her precious New River home when many of you right here were working to save the river from being flooded out by those damn dams. I remember her words. She said, "I could hear the torrent roar. I could see the high hawk soar from that spot of land my father gave to me." For several years now, I have had the high honor of working for a president and a vice president who are deeply committed to preserving the precious lands that God has given to us all. All across this great country of ours, these two great leaders have helped rural, urban, and suburban communities to be the kinds of stewards of the land that you are here today. They have shown that the health of our environment and the prosperity of our people truly go hand in hand. And for us here, right here in North Carolina, there has been no greater steward of our precious North Carolina home than our Governor, Jim Hunt. I want you to know that in my current job, I have the chance to work closely with the governors of all 50 states. And I can tell you that there is no one else, it's not even close, who fights harder or more effectively for the children, for the families, for the natural heritage and values of his state than our Governor Jim Hunt. In a state that is rich with blessings, Jim Hunt is surely number one. I am honored to introduce to you a man I have admired and respected for over 30 years, my good friend, our nation's greatest governor, Governor Jim Hunt of North Carolina.
You're very kind, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Well, Erskine, thank you very much, and we welcome you home. And we welcome the great President and Vice President of the United States to this great and beautiful state, and there's no place prettier than northwestern North Carolina and the banks of the New. Mr. President, you're here in a little bit of heaven that is tucked away in these mountains. And I want to tell you, folks, I just rode out here with the President from his helicopter up there on that very high airport. And he was so excited looking out at everybody. People were out waving flags, and he was asking about the countryside and the people here. This President and this Vice President are very excited to be with you, just like you are to be with them. As Congressman Burr said, today is a very important day for America, and we are all privileged to be a part of it. I want to thank the President and Vice President for recognizing and rewarding efforts to restore and protect our rivers in North Carolina and in America, protecting them for our children and our grandchildren and the future of America. Mr. President, these people are here today and excited about being with you and the Vice President. But I want to tell you, these people have been here. They have been working on this project for a long time. You heard mentioned earlier the efforts in the 1960s to prevent the damming up of this river. It would have flooded 40,000 acres for hydroelectric power, and it was stopped by the people who said it was wrong and it ought not to happen. And we appreciate Governor Holshouser and Senator Broyhill and all those who worked on it hard. I was presiding over the state senate as lieutenant governor in 1975 when we created a state scenic river system. We especially created it so it could have the New River as a part of it, and then, of course, that became a part of the federal wild and scenic river system. I was here in 1980 with many of you when we came here and dedicated a state park just a mile and a half or so from where we stand and made it available to the people of this state, 1,500 acres. And now, of course, the President and the Vice President and our congressman come to designate it as an American Heritage River. Now, one reason that this has happened is because so many of you have worked so hard. And there is a special group here today that has worked especially hard. They have been planting buffers along this river, up and down it. They have been constructing trails and clearing debris, working very hard to make this river clean and beautiful and available to us. The young people I refer to are called the River Builders. They are here today, and let's give them a big hand of applause. The truth is, God made this earth, and God made this river. And our job and our opportunity that we ought to give thanks for is to preserve it, to be its stewards, to be trustees of it. I want to say to you today that our state of North Carolina is committed to cleaning up our rivers and caring for them, all of them, all across the face of this state. This designation today, the creation of this system across America, will help us in our job. It is now my special honor to present a man who has focused this nation on its environment in a way that perhaps nobody else has done. Our environment, including our rivers. He has led efforts to see us tackle the matter of clean air, which we must have for our children. Taking care of our land, and I commend the county commissioners in this county that are now working on some land use planning issues. He has led our nation and has been a leader of the world as we are dealing with the very serious issue of global warming. And if we didn't believe it was an issue after this summer, we know it is. He has led us on the matter of sustainable development, because you can have economic development that is consistent with a good, clean environment. I am very proud that he is with us here today. He is from our neighboring state of Tennessee that used to be a part of North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Vice President of the United States of America, Al Gore.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What a wonderful crowd, and congratulations to all of you who have worked so hard to make this day possible. And when Jim Hunt said that the President and I are excited to see you and to be here, that is sure right. This is wonderful. And when we came around the bend up there, I just couldn't believe there were this many people out here. Thank you all for coming. And Jim Hunt, thank you for being a great governor. Thank you for your friendship, and thank you for all the lessons that you've taught me over the years. You all are very, very fortunate to have a visionary leader in Governor Jim Hunt. He is fantastic, and we appreciate him a lot. And you're right, Governor, that Tennessee and North Carolina used to be the same state. I never can remember what it was called back then. Was it Tennessee or North Carolina? I know that there are a bunch of Tennesseans here. Wilma Dykeman's here somewhere, and I see Tommy Walsh from Mountain City and lots of other folks here. And we landed at Tri-Cities Airport this morning and helicoptered over and drove on down here. It's great to be with the Congressman Richard Burr. Thank you for your kind words, Congressman, and for your work on this project. And Congressman Nick Rahal, my longtime friend from West Virginia. And incidentally, there are some folks from West Virginia and Virginia and other locations that are here and some that are connected to us by way of satellite hookup, where they're having their own celebrations at 14 sites around America, where people have worked in groups just like this one, feeling the pride in their rivers, coming together and now celebrating the designation the President will announce in just a moment. So we're awful glad that you came down here to the epicenter of today's celebration, Nick. And to Erskine Bowles, I'll tell you this. I know the President feels real strongly about this also, but I want to say it from my standpoint. I don't believe I've ever worked with a more competent person with a great heart and the ability to get things done than our Chief of Staff, Erskine Bowles. He really knows how to get the job done. I know that there are a lot of folks from the County Commission here, and I want to acknowledge them, and Mayor Earl Hightower of Jefferson and Dale Baldwin of West Jefferson. I don't want to leave out West Jefferson. And the Mayor of Lansing, Dana Brown, and the Chairman George Yates of the County Commission. I wanted to mention him also. And you know, one of those environmental issues more counties like you all are taking on is this suburban sprawl issue, and we're going to have to tackle that as a nation. I want to acknowledge the members of the Governor's Cabinet who are here, Wayne McDevitt and Muriel Offerman and Richard Moore. And I want to thank the Chairman of the American Heritage Rivers Advisory Committee, Dayton Duncan, and Maria Turan and Doug Wilson and Kay Whitlock, who are on that commission. Let's give them a round of applause for the great work that they did. Now, I'm going to make a few comments here, and then I'm going to introduce a woman who is part of this community, and she will have the privilege of introducing the President. But I want to first tell you that this is the second time in less than a year that the President and I have been able to enjoy the natural splendor of the Upper New River Valley. Some of you may remember that our national Christmas tree out in front of the White House came from right here this year. And it was grown in Ashe County, one of the most beautiful trees our country has ever had. Every year at Christmas time, our family always says, I believe that's the prettiest tree we've ever had. And in Washington, you know, we ought to be able to say as a country, I believe that's the prettiest tree our country's ever had. Well, it came from Ashe County, and we see one of the reasons why, the magnificent river that feeds and nourishes this great land. The New River truly is one of America's greatest treasures, and we're here today to take steps, along with you, to ensure that this river and rivers like it in communities across America who do join us by satellite stay healthy and clean for generations to come. You know, Erskine talked about fishing on this river. Fishermen have a phrase they use when they're studying the patterns of the river, trying to figure out where the fish are. And they call it reading the water. I know some of you have used that phrase as I have. And I think today that phrase has some special meaning for us. For those of us who grew up on and near rivers, especially those of us who come from rural America, reading these waters evokes chapters from our own childhoods and memories from our own lives. This past weekend, I was on the banks of the Caney Fork River over in Tennessee that runs between my farm and my parents' farm. And I have the same kinds of memories that Erskine Bowles shared with you from my childhood and from taking my own children out on the Caney Fork River and down not too far from our farm to where it merges with the Cumberland River. And I know that many of you here have your own vivid memories of this great river, whether fishing at Raven Rock or riding bicycles along Railroad Grade Road or tubing out at the Cox Boggs Crossroads or whatever. And our hosts here today, Bill and Lula Seaver, have lived on this. Thank you, Bill. They're going to remember you the way they remember that Woodstock place. People come in on your farm here. Not exactly the same way. They have lived here on this river since they were married 38 years ago. And they followed in the footsteps of 5 generations of the Seaver family, a family that's plowed these fields and prayed in the church and played in this river for more than 140 years. You see a family cemetery up there, and you see a farm that's been very well taken care of. When Bill casts a line out here for fish, he does it from the same spot as his grandfather did before him. He was telling us about his granddad who died at the age of 97. And his grandfather fished in the same spot that his grandfather fished in. You know, that's kind of the way it's supposed to be, I believe. And Bill will tell you that the fish are just as big as they were back then. Lula will tell you that so are the stories about the ones that got away. Our rivers are not just the lifeblood that connects our communities. They're also lifelines connecting us to generations past and generations future. We met with Bill and Lula's grandchildren when we were meeting the family over there. And you know, in the name of those children, we have to accept and shoulder the burden of being good stewards of this land and of these rivers. And in the past, we haven't always been good stewards of this sacred trust. We've made some progress, though, although there's still work to be done. I was reading in the news this morning about the Pfiesteria outbreak elsewhere in this state, and over in Atlanta about cryptosporidium, which has been in some of the water supplies. And all these things remind us why we've got to take good care of the waters and the land and really work hard at it. And we've done some things that have made progress. You know, you think back 25 years ago, there was a time when our rivers were much more polluted. That river that caught on fire, and I remember the joke that acid rain would make the rivers cleaner. But then we began to get a little bipartisan support for environmental progress, and 25 years ago, we started really cleaning up the rivers. We've got a long way to go, but we can be proud of what we have done. And on our watch, President Clinton and I have taken this responsibility very, very seriously. That's why we've worked so hard to build partnerships to restore Florida's Everglades and the California Bay Delta, and I could point out lots of other places around the country where people have come together in the name of clean water. And we've launched a Clean Water Action Plan to finish the job of cleaning up America's rivers and lakes and coastal waters. And that's why we're putting record new resources into our national parks and wilderness preserves, and we're doing it within a balanced budget because it is a priority now and for the future. Let's have a clean environment. It's not just a policy priority, it's a moral obligation. And today, thanks to ongoing cleanup efforts in communities across America, our rivers are once again a source of wonderful national pride. From Evanston, Wyoming to Cleveland, Ohio, our nation is experiencing a river renaissance. Communities are coming together to protect their rivers, promote their economies, and preserve their cultural heritage. And today, we take an historic step to celebrate and support and consolidate these efforts. Because last year, in his State of the Union address, President Clinton created the American Heritage Rivers Initiative to help and promote voluntary river restoration efforts all over America. Thank you, Mr. President. It was a visionary step. And what he announced in his State of the Union is the first thing I thought of when I saw this crowd here, because you've come together in the name of this river and because of your love of this river. Well, last September, we invited communities across America to nominate their rivers for designation as an American Heritage River. And the response was unbelievable. It was really overwhelming. You know, those of you who live here, what it's been like in this community. Well, it's been like that in 125 other communities around the country who have gotten together to nominate and support their own rivers in 46 states and the District of Columbia. More than 500 mayors and nearly 200 members of Congress wrote in support of this initiative. 3 days ago, on behalf of the President, I was proud to announce the names of the rivers to be designated today as American Heritage Rivers, and the President's going to officially do that in a moment. But the message is clear. There is nothing more powerful than water as a catalyst to create jobs, clean our environment, strengthen our communities, and preserve our culture all at the same time. And I want to say this before I close and call on Sheila Morgan to introduce the President. Jim Hunt mentioned that I have worked hard on the environment, and I care a lot about the environment, and some of you know that, and it is a labor of love. It means a great deal to me. But I want you to know this. When Bill Clinton and I started our partnership, the environment was one of the first things we talked about. And I cannot tell you how proud I am to serve with a man who has done more than any other president in the history of this country to protect our environment. Each and every day, President Bill Clinton makes an enormous difference for our families and for our communities because he understands their promise and he cares deeply about your future, whether it's the environment or the economy or the future of education in this country. I'm intensely proud to serve with him, and I'm proud to call him the environmental president. Thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership in protecting America's rivers. Now, it's my honor to introduce someone who is part of this local effort that has been so successful here today. If there's strength in this American Heritage Rivers initiative, it really lies in the communities along these rivers and with the people who are working from the ground up and from the water up to keep these rivers clean. And one of those people is Sheila Morgan. Many of you know Sheila as the co-owner with her husband Joe of the Todd General Store. But she has also worked tirelessly the past 5 years to coordinate volunteer efforts to bring people together to keep the river clean. When she's not working to save the new river, she's working to save lives as an emergency room nurse at Ashe Memorial Hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Sheila Morgan. I'm going to pull this out for you here.
As he said, Joe Morgan, my husband, and I live in Todd, a little village on the South Fork of the New River, here in Ashe County. We own the Todd General Store and we work other full-time jobs, and like our neighbors, we also volunteer our time for community activities, such as the Todd Ruritan Club, the Todd New River Festival, and the New Youth Football League. We who live in the New River communities are honored to have been chosen as an American Heritage River. When we heard about the program, New River folks felt it just fit the way we do things around here. In these mountains, we don't need a handout, we need a hand up. As they've mentioned, for the first time since 1976, when we won the fight to preserve our family lands, our churches, our schools, and our river, folks in Allegheny, Ashe, Watauga, and Grayson counties have worked together to turn our vision for the New River community into an action plan. If you'll take just a minute to look around you, you can see that we've been truly blessed. Our New River is the oldest on the continent, and it's a river that's been cared for by generations of families. The mountains around us that have sheltered us and made us strong. But our greatest blessing is our people, folks who worked hard to put together a plan that is simple, sensible, and doable. Residents of 4 counties who have worked hard for the past week to prepare for this honor, a visit from our president, vice president, governor, congressman, and state representatives. And all of the folks who will work together over the next 5 years to improve our river, our economy, and our community. We will work hard to make this a success, and we thank you all for being with us today and for putting your faith in the New River communities. And now, it is my privilege to introduce you to the President of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Sheila Morgan. Didn't she do a good job? I want to thank you, ma'am. I want to thank all of you. I want to especially thank my good friend Governor Hunt, America's premier and senior governor on so many issues, and especially the education of our children. He's done a wonderful job for you. I want to thank Congressman Burr for his statement, his commitment, his support of this project, and proving once again that at its best, America's commitment to our natural environment and our children's future is a bipartisan effort. I want to thank Congressman Rahal, my good friend from West Virginia, for reminding us that Virginia and West Virginia are also a part of the New River designation, and very proud of it. I thank Chair of the Federal Advisory Commission, Dayton Duncan, and the other members who are here today, the Chair of the American Heritage River Alliance, Peter Stroh. I think the North Carolina Poet Laureate, Fred Chappell, is here, and I thank him for coming. I hope he'll write a poem about this. I want to say to Chairman Yates and Mayors Baldwin, Brown, and Hightower, we're glad to be here in your neighborhood. I would like to say a special word of thanks to the Vice President for the magnificent record he has established in protecting our environment and in so many other areas of our national life. And to my great good friend, Erskine Bowles, perhaps the most effective chief of staff any president ever had, and a relentless promoter of North Carolina and the New River. I think the Vice President would agree with me when I say on October 1st we will close our books on the old budget year and open our books on the new one, and for the first time in 29 long years, America is going to have a balanced budget and a surplus, thanks in no small measure to Erskine Bowles' leadership. I want to thank all the people who made this day possible, the young people, the river builders. I thank the Young AmeriCorps volunteers who are here. I thank all the older people who also worked hard. I don't know how in the world you all got this place outfitted for this many people in no more time than you had to work on it. But I hope we could all join one more time in thanking Bill and Lula Siebert and their family. The Sieberts have been great to make us at home in their home. Thank you. Bless you. You imagine how he felt? He said, how would you like to just take out a minute or two in a couple of weeks, Bill, to entertain the President, the Vice President, the Governor, 2 congressmen, and 6,500 of their closest friends? Just another day on the farm. In just a few moments, I will sign a proclamation making all this official. awarding our nation's first American Heritage Rivers designations to the New River, the Blackstone and Woonasquatucket, the Connecticut, the Cuyahoga, the Detroit, the Hanalei, the Hudson, the Upper and Lower Mississippi, the Potomac, the Rio Grande, the St. Johns, the Upper Susquehanna and Lackawanna, and the Willamette. Those places tell you an awful lot about America. They span our history, they span our country, they capture our imagination. I want to congratulate the communities that participated in all these designations, and also those who worked so hard who didn't quite make it this time. It was an amazing process. You know, for 5.5 years, the Vice President and I have worked hard to honor one of our nation's oldest, most enduring values, to preserve for future generations the earth God gave us. That's really what this river initiative is all about. The First Lady has headed up our coming celebration, moving toward the year 2000 of the millennium, starting a new century and a new 1,000 years. And she came up with this theme that we should honor the past and imagine the future. You may have seen a few days ago, she went out to Fort McHenry, where the Star-Spangled Banner flew, to celebrate the restoration of the Star-Spangled Banner. Then on to the home of Thomas Edison, Harriet Tubman, and then to George Washington's Revolutionary War headquarters, the thing that got North Carolina into this country in the first place and put it in a position to give up Tennessee. So I think, he's laughing. I'll hear about that later. What we do today is an important part of honoring our past, and it's far more distant. And it also will stretch far, far into the future. Like the ring of a stately old oak, the currents of our rivers carry remarkable stories. The New River tells stories of a region, the Southern Appalachian region, where tight-knit communities remain true to tradition, where neighbors share a vision of wise stewardship of water and land. It tells the stories of our emerging nation, for Colonel Peter Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson's father, surveyed this river, and Daniel Boone trapped here for beaver and bear. It tells stories of earlier settlement through tools left by the Kanawha, Cherokee, and Creek. It tells the story of our planet, for scientists can tell by the river's location and direction of flow that it is not only the oldest river in North America, but the second oldest river on the face of the earth. The other American heritage rivers all have compelling stories of their own. But there is one story all these rivers share, the story of communities rallying around their rivers, the way neighbors rally around each other in time of need or to get something done in the community. Sheila talked about what you did here. In each and every community that won this designation, and I add those who came close, and there were dozens of them, we were simply overwhelmed by the cooperation between interests who often disagree, and by the creative but practical plans forged by communities for protecting natural resources, spurring revitalization of the economy, and preserving cultural heritage. Now we intend to work with you to realize our plans. This is the beginning, not the end, of this celebration. First, let me say there will be no federal mandates, no restrictions on property holders' rights. Our goal instead is to help local groups enhance historic rivers and make them attractive and commercially vibrant, even as we preserve their environmental characteristics. Here, for example, we'll start working with the New River Heritage Task Force to help family farmers increase their incomes with alternative crops and innovative techniques while cutting the flow of pollutants into the river. On the Detroit River, we'll help to revitalize an urban waterfront to bring new opportunity to downtown Detroit. On the St. Johns River, we will help to control future floods and enhance environmental protection for for rare species like the manatee. On each and every one of these rivers, we will help to unite our communities to further our country's river renaissance. For nearly 3 decades now, as the Congressman said earlier, and as the Vice President echoed, our nation has made strong, visible, bipartisan progress in cleaning up our environment while enhancing our economy at the same time. Today, our economy is the strongest in a generation, but we also have cleaner air, cleaner water, fewer toxic waste dumps, safer food, the cleanest environment in a generation. And we should be proud of that. The two go hand in hand. I want to talk a little politics, but not partisan politics with you. Jim Hunt and I were riding out here, and I looked at all those folks waving to me with their American flags, and I said, Jim, is this a Democrat area or a Republican area? He said, it's about 50-50. He said, it comes and goes. I said, kind of like America. Well, I want to ask you to manifest the bipartisan or nonpartisan commitment I see in this crowd today to the environment in your voices in Washington. Because some folks in Congress are no longer committed to bipartisan progress on the environment. They really do see, I believe, honestly, polluted streams and fields or noxious air as overstated problems that can be put off for another day. We can only deal with this if we have progress, not partisanship. Because here are the facts. Today, 40% of our waters are still too polluted for fishing and swimming. That's why I launched the Clean Water Action Plan to help communities finish the job that the Vice President mentioned. So far, Congress has refused to fully fund this initiative. I asked them to reconsider. I think every child in America ought to have the same chance your children do to fish or swim or float on a river that's clean and pure. We need progress, not partisanship, to protect our land. Last February, several months ago, I submitted a list of 100 new sites we can add to our nation's endowment of protected lands, including a beautiful site here in the southern Appalachians along the trout-rich Thompson River. While Congress has appropriated the money to preserve these natural and historic treasures, under the law, the leadership must approve the release of the funds. And so far, they haven't done it. So today, I ask again, let's work together to protect these wonders. The money's in the bank. The sites have been identified. They're not going anywhere, but we need to preserve them for everyone for all time. We also need to work together to meet the challenge of climate change, which has already been mentioned by the governor and others. Let me tell you, folks, the first time I had a long talk with Al Gore, he showed me this book he wrote, Earth in the Balance, which I had already read and understood about half of. And he whipped out this chart showing how much more elements we were putting in the air in the form of greenhouse gases that were heating the planet. And I listened, and it made a lot of sense to me, but I didn't know anybody who believed it, or at least not enough to actually come up with a plan. Well, now we know that the 9 hottest years in history have occurred in the last 11 years, that the 5 hottest years in history have occurred in the 1990s, that 1997 was the hottest year ever recorded on Earth, and every month of 1998 has broken the 1997 record in America. And I'm glad the clouds came up and made me cool while I'm saying that. But there is a way, just like there has always been a way. Since we started doing this in 1970, there has always been a way for us to preserve the environment and grow the economy. There is a way for us to meet the challenge of climate change and global warming and continue to grow the economy. We just have to be innovative, and we have to be willing to change. And again, I have not proposed a lot of big, burdensome new regulations. I've proposed tax incentives and investments in new technologies and partnerships so we can reduce the harmful fumes we put into the atmosphere from transportation, from construction, from utilities, from all the work we do. We can do this. This is not going to be that hard once we make up our mind. But I can tell you, we can never do it unless there are Democrats and Republicans for it. We never make any real progress on any great challenge unless we go forward together. And I ask you to ask our country to go forward as you have gone forward together here. We need these programs for energy efficiency, renewable energy, and tax incentives. They've long enjoyed the support of business and environmentalists. They should enjoy the support of Congress. And we also need to stop using legislative gimmicks in Washington to weaken environmental protection. In the Senate, for example, lawmakers have attached to bills that are totally unrelated devices called riders that would cripple our wildlife protection efforts, deny taxpayers a fair return on oil leasing on public lands, allow a $30 million road through a wildlife refuge in Alaska, the first road ever through a federal wilderness. We don't need to do this. We need to keep going forward. Look out at that river and just imagine. Just try to imagine what it would be like to be 300 million years old. I'm grateful for our economic prosperity. I'm grateful for the fact that the crime rate is down and we have the smallest percentage of our people on welfare in 29 years. I'm grateful for these things. But you know and I know that the world is still changing fast, that there are many challenges out there, that we're trying to meet right now the challenge of the problems that our friends in Asia have, which could affect the whole world economy, just for example. We're trying to deal with wars of racial and religious and ethnic hatred that could spill into other countries and engage our young people again. We know that we will have future challenges because in the nature of things, once you solve one set of problems, there's always a new set of challenges coming along. That's one of the gifts that God has given us. So we'll always have new challenges, but you'll always have the new river too. So for those of us who are old enough to be parents or grandparents, we know when our children and grandchildren are our age, the facts of their lives might be a little different. It's kind of heartening to know, isn't it, that the new river will be the same because of what you are doing here today? This ancient river has flowed through the heart of this land for millions of years, hundreds of millions of years, longer than blood has flowed through any human heart. The Cherokee even say that this was the very first river created by the Great Spirit's hand. Who are we, such brief visitors on this earth, to disturb it? But when we cherish it and save it and hand it on to our children, we have done what we were charged to do, not only in our own Constitution and history, but by our Maker. You should be very, very proud of yourselves today. I thank you for what you have done. God bless you.